You have the front entry recessed back under a porch, and then you have a porch on the roof, all of which breaks up the frontal mass. They've kept the gable ridge below the main ridge of the house, again, working to keep the apparent mass of the building down. So I think that in terms of creating a building that gives them comfortable year-round living, this project meets that goal. Again, it's larger than the neighbors around it, but we have spoken to the neighbor to the left, the one closest to the Cape Cod 5, and he told Rick Roy that after looking at the design, he had no objection to the building. We have not heard from the other neighbors on the street. We would point out that the building most directly affected by this is substantially higher than this building. And so it's going to continue to look over it. It also gets to look down the street as well. The property on the right-hand side actually has two buildings, and by Blackberry Lane standards, an enormous lot because it's got a separate garage and then the house up on the top of the hill. So, as I say, the house is larger, substantially larger than the existing structure, but I think the design is one that reflects the neighborhood. The properties that you would think, well, might have an objection because they're having a larger home built in front of them are really so much higher that they continue to look over it. And, our neighbor to the left really has no objection. At least that's what he told us, or told Rick. So I'll just run through the criteria. The lot is small. I know Dave measured it out at 6,100 and something, but on the original subdivision plan, it says 6,200 square feet, but it's a small lot. But we think the size is adequate for the proposed project because other than the front setback, we do meet the current zoning setbacks on the other sides of the building. It's an R20 zone. Setbacks are 15 feet. So I think that, our coverage, of course, is way over 15%, but our coverage is no greater with this design than it is with the existing design, 29.1%. So we're not increasing the coverage. We're just massing the buildings together. So we think to the extent that the current building and its coverage are adequate, we think this is adequate as well. Compatibility, the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. If you look at our numbers on the back page, we are substantially larger than the other structures. And I think that has more to do with the fact that modern construction tends to be much more efficient in providing space inside of structures. That, and of course the fact that we have gross floor area includes the basement, but the living space in the building is right around 3,000 square feet, which is not, in this day and age, an unreasonable number. The first floor is 1,500 square feet, and the second floor is like 1,497. So it's just 3,000 square feet of living space. And and I think once you take into consideration the fact that our design, although larger, mimics the design of the house next door, it really is a compatible property. The extent of proposed increase in the non-conforming nature, again, because we're meeting all the existing setbacks and not encroaching on them any further, It's the living space in the building that's increasing the nonconformity. We think the site is suitable for the proposed project. It's level, although it's a tight site, and I know the contractor is going to have to put up temporary barriers to make sure that no material from the excavation is going to be a problem for the neighbors next door. But we don't think stormwater is a concern in this neighborhood. Scale, siding, and mass, neighborhood visual character. So the building is larger and the ridge is taller. I think that, you know, with the buildings in the rear of the subdivision being so much higher, the height of this building is really kind of, you're distracted from the height of this building by the fact that the buildings in the rear are so much taller. We know that the buildings in the rear are going to look over the top of this building, and and in terms of visual impact, I mean, we're mimicking the design of the property to the left. So I think, you know, it's a dead-end street with no through traffic. The design is a traditional Cape design, using dormers rather than having a full second floor. So I think that although it is considerably larger, the impact on the neighborhood visual character is generally positive, and in our view is not substantially more detrimental than the existing structure. Compatibility of the proposed use, it remains a single-family home in a single-family neighborhood. And all the services, sewage disposal, et cetera, they're on public sewer and, you know, public services. So there's really no impact on traffic flow and safety or noise and litter. So I think this project can be approved as being not substantially more detrimental than the existing building. That'd be our presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none. Right? Nothing? No? Questions from the board? Dave? No. Reading the correspondence. There is just one from our health agent, and she does not see any issues with it. She writes Judith on 6/11/2024. Judith Giorgio states, "I've received the plan to demolish the existing dwelling and rebuild a new dwelling. The new dwelling will remain 4-bedroom. Property is connected to the municipal sewer. I have no concerns." Now, if there's anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that has a question or wishes to speak against this application, please raise your hand. Seeing none, now we'll go with questions from the board. Dave Veach.
The only thing that I had a question, and Bill, I imagine Rick can answer this. You know, looking at the existing and proposed ridge heights, and I'm just wondering the L on the proposal that's facing the street, it has a gable facing the street. How much lower is that ridge than the main ridge behind it?
I don't know, we have the engineer and the construction guy here.
I mean, I couldn't tell because, you know, frequently these scales get messed up when we reduce the size of drawings, so.
Rick Roy Construction. At this point in time, I mean, I could tell you if I had my computer set up in front of me, okay? But I do know that, looking at the plan, it's at least 3.5 feet probably lower.
That was my guess, 3.5 probably, or 3 to 4 anyway.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had for now, thanks.
Ginny, any questions from you?
No questions.
And Steve?
I have no questions.
Lee?
No questions.
Paul?
Bill, I'm just trying to get a handle on your handout today. You indicate that the existing gross floor area is 3575, and the proposed is 4667.6. And in the materials that we received with respect to the package, it says that the total existing square footage is 2439 as opposed to 3575, and that the proposed square footage is 4769 as opposed to 4667.
Yeah, so I don't know where, I don't know, perhaps Sarah can tell us where they get the numbers from, because we're relying on that the plans that were provided to us by Rick's company.
That was part of your submittal, Bill.
I beg your pardon?
That was part of your submittal.
So you gave us those numbers. That's what we
Existing-
want.
Well, then
the-
they're clearly
the existing-
accurate.
The existing proposed gross floor area sheet that was broken down by first floor, second floor, and foundation, existing and proposed. It was page 4 of the
Yeah.
packet.
All right, so what, okay, so now, the, so what was your question, Paul?
Well, I'm trying to reconcile this. It seems to say the total existing square footage, at least on your in your submission, was 2439 square feet. And what your handout today indicates is that it's 3575. So you would be going from a total existing square footage of 2439 to 46, either 4667 or 4769.
Paul, that may be that the garage wasn't included in the initial packet submission for gross floor area. That could be the difference.
Yeah, the, did I get this from your office? I have no idea where it came from.
So I can speak to, in designing the project or whatever, okay? In order to be able to get it so that they could get the increase in the floor area in the main house, all right, we actually eliminated the garage. So we incorporated that square footage into the main house because it's basically covering the same area that the garage and the existing house was covering. The increase in the square footage of the living space would be the fact that in the existing, if Sarah, you were to show the existing house, okay, it's really a two-story house, but not over the the majority of the second floor. So there's a second story on that gable end, so we kind of mimicked that Dave, when you were talking about what's the height of this section of the house. And then we put a second story with a dormer on it that goes over this section with the 3 windows. So we basically covered the second floor, but we're really taking the garage space and putting it over top of the house, all right? And then because we put a covered porch on the house, we really didn't increase that area because it counts for site coverage, but it doesn't really count for habitable space because it's outside the building. So we tried to be very modest about what we were doing, okay? Unfortunately, you don't build a new house today, okay, with 7-foot ceilings on the first floor and 6'6" ceilings on the second floor. So when you build it, it does get a little bit taller because you're building it to today's standards.
So does it seem consistent to you, Rick, that you're going from the living area on the existing property of about 2439 to 4769?
It seems to me that the discrepancy is a little bit larger than I think it really is, that's all.
That,
Yeah.
the 4769 includes the basement of the new house.
Okay, well, I understand that. I'm just trying to get a feel for, and I don't object to it increasing in size, but I'm trying to get a feel for how much of a difference there is.
Well, I think the best way to think about that is the proposed living area, if you look on the floor plan. Yeah, so if you see, they have existing and proposed. So on the first floor plan, they're proposing 1,585 square feet on the first floor. and on the second floor, it's 1,497. So that was basically 3,000 square feet of living area in the building.
And the prior living area, you're saying was 24, 39?
You also don't know.
Well, yeah, we have the same numbers here, but it looks like more like 2,000 than 2,100, yeah. 1,479 and 617, so 2,000, say 2,100 square feet of living area
And there's not a basement.
in the existing building. And there's no basement, so, in the existing building.
So the big part of this discrepancy is gonna be the fact that we have to count, we're putting a basement under the house, which there really isn't a basement under the existing structure now.
Okay, all right. I
Yeah.
guess that answers my question.
Yeah, the number to keep in mind is, the living area is 3,000 square feet, basically.
I have no other questions.
And I'd also point out that the neighbors all received notice, and they haven't filed objections, and Rick spoke to our next-door neighbor, and what did that conversation go like?
So the next door neighbor is actually an Old Townian. We knew a lot of the same people, Carlton Small and Coot Cahoon and all these builders that I worked with when I was in high school. His wife was the daughter of the owners of the Wayside Inn, and those two lots were owned by that family, and they actually divided those two lots. So he's a big part of the history of the town, and he was certainly not objecting to the project. He thought it would be a good project. The house is kind of a little odd looking anyways as it exists now, because it has that massive chimney, you know, on that end of the house, and everything will kind of be brought back more into perspective with, you know, is in the new design. So he was perfectly good. I did try to talk him into sending an email in, but I don't think probably doesn't know how to use a computer, maybe, I don't know.
Well, like you.
Okay, so moving along to questions. Paul, did you have any more questions?
No.
And Lee? Steve? You went already? Ginny? Questions?
Well, I didn't have a question, but I think the biggest part of the number discrepancy is the garage. That's not included in your information, Mr. Riley, here, but it's included in the gross floor area of your new design, because your new design includes that coverage.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest part, that and the discrepancy of the basement. That was my interpretation.
Oh, I think you're probably right, Jeannie.
Okay.
So just one other question, Kim. So, Rick, I can't tell, I'm in question, you're talking about the ceiling heights. Do you know what the design ceiling heights you're using in the new building
Yeah,
are?
there'd be 9'1" on the first floor, and
Yep.
8'1" on the second.
Okay. That's all set, thanks.
No questions.
And Dave Nixon?
No questions.
Okay, I don't think I have any questions either, so Paul?
All right, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
Nixon? Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. All right, deliberations. Ed?
I think the design fits in well with that area of town. It is quite an increase, but eliminating the garage and incorporating it into the house, I feel it's reasonable, and if I was voting, I would vote in the affirmative.
Okay. Dave Nixon? Deliberations?
Yeah, I like this. The only thing I'm sorry to see is the garage go. And I know that if it stayed, we'd be up in 35% and that kind of stuff. And could I be talked into that? I don't know. I mean, maybe. But I'm just saying, certainly the house is a great improvement. And with those two, as you pointed out, with the two homes at the end, so much taller, it really, it kind of fits in, it kind of nestles in. So I like it very much.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, I spent a little time out there just trying to visualize it, and I'm certainly looking at the existing building. You can see how everything is kind of squashed down, and there's a need to increase the height over what's there. And, you know, with those, as Dave said, with those properties closer to the golf course being higher, and the fact that the neighbor, Don there, doesn't have any problems with it, I think it certainly is going to be, have somewhat more visual mass than what's there, but I don't think I think the design fits very well, and I don't think that it's jarringly more massive in any way, shape, or form. I think it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and will fit in.
Yeah, Ginny?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I see that it's going up, it's not going out. It had, inches different in the setback, no change to building coverage because of folding in the garage. I mean, the height is a little tall, but it's really not for that lot, like you pointed out. It's quite, substantially uphill, and the houses behind it are up on that hill and are taller. So I believe it meets our criteria.
Okay, Steve?
Well, I think that if you use your imagination a little bit, the proposed front elevation looks a lot like the existing front elevation. Except
Right.
with the addition of the second story. So, I'm glad you're sort of in keeping with that and with the neighborhood. So the increase in mass is mostly over the front door with the expansion of the second floor. So I think it looks like a nice project. And it is very similar to the other houses in the neighborhood, and I don't think it would be detrimental.
And Lee?
I agree, and once again, I really love the plans with the existing and proposed, and we can see it side by side, and it's very, very helpful. I think this is going to be great. It's a small lot, the building's large, but with those two up on the hill, save it. So if I were voting, I'd vote in favor.
Yeah, and Paul?
Yes, I agree. I think the setting is what saves it, is the larger houses behind it and to the right as you go up the road. If those were not there, then I would be much more hesitant about dealing with the whole thing, because it is quite a bit larger, and it's going to be solid. But I think as it stands, it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
No, and I agree with all my colleagues. What about conditions? Building conditions? The usual summer?
We'll be starting in the fall probably, so.
All right, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the conditions that all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work will be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Once again, Mr. Riley, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Hat trick for you today. And whenever Sarah's ready, we're going to go to 46 Barnhill Lane.
Application number 24-058, Kevin B. Costello Trust 2018 and Sophia Costello Trust 2018, care of James M. Norcross Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 46 Barnhill Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9C, Block 19, Lot 35. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 21.6 feet from the road and 14.9 feet from the easterly abutter. The proposed dwelling will be nonconforming and that it will be located 13 feet from the road where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 795 square feet, 5.6%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,155 square feet, 14.8%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming and that it contains 14,274 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Attorney Norcross, welcome.
Good afternoon, Jamie Norcross representing Kevin and Sophia Costello. Mr. and Mrs. Costello are in the back in the red and white shirt this afternoon. And this is a proposal to demolish the existing two-bedroom dwelling and to build a new two-bedroom dwelling. The Costellos have owned the property almost 15 years now, and they will, in the near future, be retiring and looking to make Chatham their full-time residence. They also have 3 grown daughters, and they're hopeful of grandchildren in the not-too-distant future. So a few years ago, they started looking at the property in terms of adding some additional living area. It's a current 1970s era cottage, so it's pretty tight when the family's in town. Initially, they had looked at perhaps expanding the existing structure. They have done some work over the years. They added the back deck that you see on the property now, and they converted the prior deck into a 3-season living area. However, the manner and the status of the construction from the 70s really didn't make it conducive to adding on to the existing building, so they changed their avenue to look at building a new house. And so, as you see from the plan and from being outside, it's a very challenging lot. So the design process for them has been difficult, pretty involved. They've been working with David Clark for quite a while now to try to come up with a design that would fit the property. And their 2 main goals, in addition to the living area, was to get the house up closer to the street level and get rid of that existing very significant slope that's on the property running down from Barn Hill Lane, which really doesn't make for a great use of the property. They also wanted to add a 2nd story for the additional living area. And so, and David Clark, I should have mentioned, is here as well, who is the engineer, and he can explain this better than I do if you have specific questions on the height. But in order to, let me back up a second. So we have the building where we're gonna meet all the sideline setbacks. We are not going to meet the setback from Barn Hill Lane, which I'm sure is going to come up, and so I'm going to address that in a moment. We're going to meet the height requirement, and we're going to meet the coverage requirement. Now, I would suggest the height requirement in this instance, or our building height number, is a little bit deceptive. We're right at 30 feet, and that's because we have to calculate using the average grade. And as you're familiar, the average grade is calculated. You take the grade from the 4 sides of the home, you combine them, you take the average, and then you add 30 feet from that. Because the property is so significantly lower as you go toward the back, our average grade number is reduced significantly as well, which makes it very difficult to build to meet the 30-foot height limitation and have a 2nd story. So while the structure is right at 30 feet as evaluated pursuant to your zoning bylaw under the grade plane calculation, the structure itself, as measured from the top of the foundation to the ridge, is 26 feet. So the number David shows you there, we're right at 30 feet, but the actual house, it's not a 30-foot house, it's really a 26-foot house as measured from the top of the foundation. So I do want to clarify that. And one other item is that I'm sure the board's saying, well, why are you moving it closer to the street when you're going bigger, right? That's a reasonable question for your criteria. And the reason is, if you move it back, then we're over the 30-foot height limitation if you want to have a 2nd story, because the lower numbers, as that slope continues to go down, we have to use those into the grade plane calculation, meaning anything with a 2nd story is going to be over the 30-foot height limitation, which would require a variance. So when we talk about a difficult lot, that's really the main difficulty. If you want to have a 2nd story, this is where the structure has to be in order to meet the grade plane calculations for 30 feet. David mentioned, you could build it further back if you had a 1-story ranch, but again, with Mr. and Mrs. Costello looking to increase the living area and have that 2nd story, this is the location where they can meet that calculation and be under the 30-foot limitation. I also asked David, well, can you fill more of the area in the back to raise your grade plane? He says, no, they're already doing a significant amount of fill is proposed, and they can't do any more on the site. So that's not a avenue for them either. So it's not a situation where they want to have it at this distance to the street. They do want to have a 2nd story, and this is where it has to be located if they're going to meet the 30-foot height limitation. So I did want to explain that. In terms of the mass, obviously it's bigger than what's there now. Obviously it's closer to the street. I would suggest point out a couple items to you. So the 13 feet that you see is, I'm just going to find the pointer. There you go. The 13 feet is to the porch area right here, and to the bump out that's on the middle of the building in this portion right here. That's 13 feet. These doghouse dormers here, and that portion of the roof is set back further from that. And the foundation, so the structure here where you see the door, that's actually 21 feet set back from the street. The garage is 29 feet setback from the street. So I mentioned that by way of saying it's not all at 13 feet all the way across. It's staggered, which does help reduce the massing as viewed from the street. I'd also say the massing issue is reduced a bit by the fact that we don't, Mr. and Mrs. Costello are not proposing any living area over the garage. It's just attic space, so that's a lower ridge height there, as you can see on the plan, which again, by having the different setbacks, having the different roof elevations, having the dormers on the front of the house here, I think helps break up the massing. From the street level, again, it's from the first floor, it's a 25-foot house. The first floor is about 1.5 feet lower than the street, so it's still going to be a little bit lower than the street. So as viewed from Barnhill Lane, you are still going to look down a bit, which again, I think helps reduce the issues of the height being within the setback to the street. So moving along to the criteria, number one, adequacy of the site in terms of size. We believe the size is adequate. As I mentioned, we will meet all sideline setbacks, and we are below the 15% maximum building coverage allowed for this property. I went into some detail on the setback to Barnhill Lane, so I won't mention that at this point, but I will say that I don't think the size will overwhelm the streetscape and the grade in the area of the home, as it will remain slightly below the grade at street level. And most of the other properties in this area are at street level or just below, which is what this one will be as well. Compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. In the gross floor area analysis I provided, I focused on the surrounding properties in Barnhill Lane and Chatfield Lane. Majority of the homes in this area were originally built in the 1970s, but a number have undergone significant expansion and renovation in the last 25 years. As you can see in that chart, I would suggest the size of the proposed home is actually quite compatible with the neighboring homes in terms of the gross floor area number and lot size. I think it's may not be right in the middle, but it's certainly not the most, and there's a number of properties larger. So I think we certainly are compatible. Extent to the proposed increasing non-conforming nature of the structure. We are going to meet the sideline setbacks, but we are increasing the setback, increasing the structure within the setback to Barnhill Lane. So that would be an increase in the non-conforming nature of the structure. Suitability of the site, including but not limited to impact on neighboring properties. We believe the site is suitable for the proposed demolition and rebuild. No negative impact on neighboring properties or the environment caused by the proposed construction. I think the regrading of the site should actually represent an improvement long-term for any runoff and drainage on site. 5 is impact of scale, siding, and mass on neighborhood visual character. For the reasons I suggested, I don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood visual character. I think it's obviously a big change, but I think the Costellos and David have worked hard to try to mitigate the setback issue, the increased height. The ceiling heights, it's 8.5 on the first floor, it's 8 on the second floor, so they're not maxing out inside. They try to pinch those down as much as they can to keep it so it's a reasonable size home. And I don't think it's not a big house, it's just we're set back close to the street for the reasons that I explained. I would also mention that you'll read, we have 3 letters of support from the immediate abutters on the left, right, and the rear of the property, so arguably the 3 property owners that would be most affected by this are in favor of the project. And also, this area slopes significantly from the other side of Barnhill Lane down toward Chatfield Lane. So that also, those old homes on the other side of Barnhill Lane set up higher than this already. So I think that, again, helps mitigate the encroachment into the street. It's a residential use in a residential neighborhood, and therefore compatible. We have adequate source of water, and we're going to have a new septic system installed as part of the project. No impact on traffic flow and safety. No issues with noise and litter. We have adequate utilities, and 11 and 12 are not applicable. So that'd be our presentation. David, as I mentioned, is here to answer any real technical questions you have on grade and height and everything else. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will read the 4 correspondences. One is from our health agent, Judith Giorgio, on 6/11/2024. She writes, I have reviewed the plan to demolish the existing dwelling and rebuild a new dwelling. The new dwelling will have 2 bedrooms and will not encroach on the existing septic system. The property is deed restricted to 2 bedrooms. I have no concerns about this project. Then we have a letter from Matt Evans from 56 Barnhill Lane, who writes on May 29th, 2024. I am writing to express my support for Kevin and Sophia Costello's proposal to construct a new build on their property at 46 Barn Hill. I have reviewed the plans with the Costellos and agree with the scope of their proposed new home. Next, we have a note from Alan Hastbacher from May 29th, 2024, who writes, "I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to express my wholehearted support for the new house being built at 46 Barn Hill Lane. The project promises to bring positive change to our community, provide beautiful modern housing, and enhancing our neighborhood's appeal. Thank you for your efforts in making this development a reality. I'm confident it'll be a great success and a wonderful addition to our area. Mr. and Mrs. Allen Hastbacher." Kevin Costello writes on, let's see, no? I'm sorry. Yeah, James Dolan and Janice Fahey. They write on, let's see, it's dated 5/28/24. "I'm writing to express my wholehearted support for Kevin and Sophia's Costello's proposal to build a house on their property. I believe their plans will bring numerous benefits to our neighborhood and contribute positively to our community. The construction of a new house on 46 Barn Hill will have several positive impacts to our neighborhood, including aesthetic enhancement. The Costellos have a reputation for tasteful and considerate design. Their new home is expected to blend harmoniously with the existing architecture of the neighborhood, enhancing the overall aesthetic appeal of Barn Hill Lane. Increased property values. Well-designed and maintained homes contribute to the overall value of the area. The additions to the Costello's house is likely to increase property values in our neighborhood, benefiting all residents. Economic stimulus. The construction process will provide jobs for local contractors, builders, suppliers, thereby supporting the local economy. Additionally, the Costello's investment in their property demonstrates confidence in the growth and stability of our neighborhood. Safety and security. An occupied and well-maintained home contributes to the safety and security of the neighborhood. The presence of the Costellos will help deter crime and ensure that the area remains a safe place for all residents. In conclusion, I strongly support Kevin and Sophia Costello's plan to build a house at 46 Barn Hill Lane. I'm confident their new home will be a valuable addition to our neighborhood and bring numerous benefits to our community. I ask the ZBA to approve the proposal. Thank you for considering my perspective on this matter. Again, that's James Dolan and Janice Fahey of 36 Barn Hill Lane. That concludes the correspondences. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing nobody. Okay, questions? Dave Veach?
No, I have no questions at this point, thanks.
Ed?
Yeah, I have a question for Dave Clark. Dave, I guess my question is the house, moving it further back, it seems to me that it could be pushed further back. It would require more fill and more retaining, but the height's determined from the grade, not the existing grade, but the grade after the project's completed. So could you explain to me why it's placed where it is?
So the two challenges with, the two results of moving it back is that, first, the house has to be lowered as you go back. We can't maintain the same first floor elevation. So one of the goals was to have it near the street level. So because it comes down as you go back, it steepens the driveway to the point where the garage might not be a viable possibility for. So those are the two. Yes, we can fill more in the back, but that doesn't keep the house up at the same level. It puts it down further in the hole.
So it's sort of a trade-off of
Yes.
getting the house to street level, which I think is the best, siting for the house. But if the further you go back, it's going to be not as drastic as it is now, but somewhere in between.
Yeah, we spent, I think 3, maybe 4 months going back and forth with the architect. we actually took some height out of the first and second floor ceiling heights, just because it was not going to work. And we went back and forth with the location. We knew that 13 feet was going to be an issue, and we looked at moving it back. We just couldn't get the driveway to work. You see where the septic system is, that would have to be moved further down the slope, which means most of this area is infill already, which means a substantial overdig, and so it was a balance. And again, it was a very difficult process. Bigger houses on big lots are easy. This is probably the most topographically challenged lot we've worked on in a decade at least.
Thank you.
Dave Nixon, questions?
I do, thank you. And I want to thank Dave Clark for the numbers that he produced for us as far as the height of the houses to the right and to the left. That was beyond the call of duty. I called up Dave and asked him if he could help us out, and he said, sure. So, again, thank you very much, Dave, for doing that. My problem with the home as designed is the 13 feet from the street. You know, it just, I think, Jamie, as you know, I hate to see something that is already not okay by zoning made worse. So I circle around and I ask both of you the question, why don't you take the existing house and rebuild that into a two-story home that would fulfill your client's needs for a larger house? So do you have an answer for that?
It would be just build a second story on the current structure?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to put, I understand you'd have to put a foundation under it and all the rest of it, but you would rebuild that house sort of in the dimension it is, maybe a little bit, and it would go up too, and would fulfill the need that you explained that your clients have for a larger house. They want a house with a second story, and so I understand that.
Right.
Okay, but if you did it where the current home is, wouldn't that eliminate a lot of these problems that, you know, like my concern about too close to the street and so forth?
Well, I think number one, it's not getting up to the street level if it's there, which was a goal as well in terms of this, is getting rid of that significant slope that you see when you're staring out at the hill. Number two, I think we probably still have a height issue potentially, but David would have to answer that even if you're going to add on to the existing. Number three, and Mr. Costello might be able to answer this better than I, but the way the home was built, and actually he's coming up right now if I may, because he's the one that saw the type of construction that was used when this was built that would make it difficult to add on to. Kevin, you just want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Kevin Costello from 46 Barney Lane. So the current house does not have any studs. It is a tongue and groove house. It has on the plate, it's toe-nailed. It goes up to the eaves, and then there's a 2x4 that runs all the way around, and then they drop the trusses on it. So structurally, you can't take anything on top, and you also can't open up probably more than a door length on the sides, or you lose integrity.
Well, I guess my question was really totally demolishing that house. And since you're interested in building a new home, building the new home at that location where the existing house is, you know, generally speaking, you know, foot here or there and all that. And so going up and getting your 2 stories that you need, yet not infringing on the closeness to the street. And you wouldn't have the problem of getting over, you know, the quick rise. I mean, when I looked at it, I said, well, gee, why not rebuild that house into a 2-story house that fits your desires?
So I can, personally for me, I watched my father go right off the hill. So that's one of the reasons. He went off the wall. So I just look at it, when I get older, I'm going to do the same thing. So that's why getting to the street is so much there. And that is not a lie.
Okay, well, all right, so.
So, David, just to say, I guess you could, it's just, there was the second layer there, which was getting it up to the street level, or closer to.
Right, and that's one of my problems about getting it up to speed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Ginny, questions?
Yeah, Jamie, well, as Mr. Nixon mentioned, Dave Clark provided some additional information about height, and I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this right. First floor to ridge, so maybe this is a question for Dave Clark. First floor to ridge, for the two neighbors on both sides, the abutting 36 and 56, and also 46. Is it, am I thinking about it right, Dave, when I take your numbers, let's use 36 as an example. 17.8 feet is the number from first floor to ridge. Is that really what we're looking at as the height of that house from, like, street level?
Not from average grade.
No, not from the average grade. That's what was confusing us.
Basically from the front door
Yeah.
threshold to the
Okay.
ridge.
Okay, so that's what I thought. So in using that, 36 then is 7.5 feet lower than what is being proposed for 46. Is that true?
17.8, 24.9, yeah, roughly, yep.
And then 56 on the other side is 6.3 feet lower than what 46 is proposing.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I wanted to just make sure,
Yep.
because I know the average grade, you're right, it was
It's-
very confusing. Okay, so then it's significantly, 46 is significantly taller, just from looking from the street level.
Yeah, from actual height, it is significantly taller, that's correct.
Okay. 36, the property on 36 Barn Hill, it was, I thought, a really good example of the same situation grade-wise. And they have done a really nice job, I'm not sure how, of its street level. Maybe I think it's the second, maybe it's a 1.5 story, it's not a full 2-story, maybe that's how they were able to accomplish it. But they are set farther back, they're not right on the street. So maybe you can, yeah, okay, so maybe that's what it is. It's smaller, it's not as tall.
It's smaller, it's 2 feet higher, first floor, so it's, like you said, it's right at street
Yeah.
level.
Okay.
But it's a much smaller house. And you could see from the roof line that
Yeah.
only a very small portion of the second floor is occupiable space.
Right.
Because there's no dormers on the street side.
But what I was kind of looking at with that neighbor was how they accomplished that grade issue. So your applicant 46 is just to the left of that image.
Right.
And so they almost have that same topography issue, and they're quite a bit back from the street. And so if you use this as an example, couldn't you go that far back, fill in that grade, and add, maybe not your exact design, but add a bigger home than that, second story? Would that not be, it sounds like you can't meet that grade issue, which,
And the other thing is, I doubt the first floor ceiling heights even meet today's code of
okay, so they're like,
7'3" or 7'6", and I
Okay.
think the second floor is probably lower than that. I mean, that's an old style Cape construction, 7 foot or less ceiling heights.
well, when I look at, Jamie, your sheet that you included in your packet,
Right.
you are showing that there was a 2021 addition on 36.
Yeah, I don't think that's a current photo of that property, in
Oh,
my
okay.
memory. Because
Okay.
it was redone, and Kevin would probably
Okay.
know the time frame better than I did, but there was a, Kevin, you gotta come to the microphone, sorry.
So they added a covered porch on the deck, so they brought that out to the back. And then they
Okay.
put a dormer off the second floor. They swung it right up, that's all.
So they really expanded the back and added a dormer on the
Yeah,
top.
so they covered the current deck that's there now with a roof
Yeah,
line.
yeah,
And then,
okay.
then
Okay,
kept the same
because-
roof height.
Right, it didn't look like it was a,
And their back of
That's
their
a-
yard
that's
does
an
not, yeah,
Sorry, that's an old picture, right?
yeah, it's an older
that's an old
picture,
picture,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, all right,
And their back doesn't drop off nearly the way ours does either,
Yeah, the topography.
in the photography.
Oh, the back
Photography.
doesn't, okay. All right. Yeah, I was really looking, I guess, at the front. So so see, I'm struggling also with how close it is to the street. So you can see where your house is. I mean, having it 8.6 feet from the street is like where that boat is. That's where you're proposing?
No, well, it's, if you, there's a rock wall just to the right of that boat,
Yeah.
and it's down at the bottom of that rock wall would be the distance. There are the red
Okay,
stakes that
right-
down
right
there.
about there,
Yeah,
okay.
so kind of on the other side of that.
Kind of where the light, the top light pole is,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
kind of the
I
line.
remember now. Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve? Questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I guess they might get progressively more difficult. But the first one is the shed, where, because it says here that it's going to be relocated, but I don't see any place where it's going to go. Is that, I know it's not a big deal, but.
I didn't talk to Kevin about that, but we can ask him since he's here, where there's plans to put the shed.
The shed most likely would go to, right against the back of the garage, meeting all the setbacks.
Okay. Okay. I guess my biggest concern, and it sounds like it is for everyone else, is the proximity of the house to the street. And I think it's, to me, it's almost too dangerously close. I could see a car in bad weather driving into the front of it. You probably don't want that to happen. I kind of like Dave's idea of maybe trying to repurpose the space on the lot where the house is now. You know, you're going to go through the trouble of building a new house with a foundation, so why not build a new house in the same location where the house is now? Do you know, or can you tell us how much fill is going to need to be placed in there, and if there's any retaining wall at the rear of the property? I see there's something on the side, but what's going to keep all of that from sliding down?
That is the only retaining wall. I guess, David, if you could address the amount of fill, please.
I haven't done a fill calculation, so I don't know what the answer is to that question. So no retaining wall is needed on the south side of the house. It will be at, I think, a 3-to-1 slope, which is less than the maximum. You can get away with 2.5, sometimes 2-to-1 slopes. So care will be needed to, when the fill is placed, to properly cover it with a geotextiles to keep it in place till the vegetation's established.
Okay. And it won't be sloped so much that, you know, just normal lawn or something will be able to hold it in place eventually? if it
Yes,
ever gets-
yeah. I don't foresee any more substantial vegetation than what's there now needed to hold all that.
What is the line of where the fill has to go back to? Is it going to affect that septic tank at all, or any of the
We have to
leach field?
adjust the tank.
You have to bring it up?
and that- Yes, because the Board of Health's requirement is no more than 3 feet of fill over any one of the components.
Right.
So we'll have to
So there's
bring
going to
those
have to be some
structures up.
excavation to raise the tank?
Expose the
and
tanks
and the leach field.
and lift it up.
Okay. I guess that's it for now. You know, again, kind of circling back, my biggest concern, I think it's a very nice-looking house, but the proximity of the house to the road, I think, is too close. I think it's much closer than the other houses around it. And it may be a bit looming over the street being that close to it. You know, I just wish that something else could be done to eliminate that situation. Thank you.
And Lee?
I have no questions. They were all asked already.
Yeah, Paul?
I guess my only question would be, where does the paved portion of Barn Hill Road, Barn Hill Lane, compare to the layout? In other words, there's a distance, I assume, between the property line and the pavement.
believe that's the, David, right, that's
That's the edge of the
that's the pavement right there,
Yeah.
and then that's the property line, so it's,
So are you saying that you would add on to the 13 feet an additional 6?
you would add on, I'm not sure we know the exact distance, but it would be an additional number of feet to the actual street, or actual road
I'm just trying to get a
surface.
feel for the concern that Steve had in terms of cars going back and forth up there.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually that close to the surface of the roadway. But the 13 feet's just the layout.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Randy, I have one other question.
Yes, please, Dave.
And so I want to clarify, Dave, you're, on the site plan, you've got a dotted line across the front of the proposed building. Does that correspond to the porch portion of the proposal?
Yes.
Okay, so that's very close to the existing 21.6 feet or whatever that it's, the old building is, that point. Now, so that what you're proposing is the wall on the first floor to essentially be in the same plane as that gable end of the existing building. Then you're coming up, you have porch, eaves, second floor.
Yes.
That is actually the portion that is that much, that's the 13 feet from the property line. And then we've got additional, we're trying to scale it off here, but neither one of us can read a scale, so. It looks like about maybe 10 feet.
10 feet, yeah.
Additionally to the pavement line in that area. So, okay, so that's into my questions regarding that, I think, Randy.
Yep, so
Yep.
to answer the question about the width of the pavement, using the scale that's on the plan, it's about 21 feet from the edge of pavement, the gutter line, to that front porch at its closest point.
21. David, it's 21 feet, David, from the actual traveled surface of Barn Hill Lane to the front of the porch.
Yeah. Who else didn't ask a question? Anybody? I think we're all set with questions. Yes.
So, and let me just make sure I'm understanding what Dave Each was saying and what you were answering. This picture, A4, the side view, this would be coming down Barn Hill Lane, correct?
At the bottom, yes.
Okay.
Yep,
So you're saying 21 feet from the street to the house or to the porch?
to the porch right here.
Right there?
Yep.
Okay. I do like how that stepped back. I think that was a good point that you made about,
No, well, she's talking from the traveled surface as opposed to the road layout is the additional square footage. So it's 13 feet from the road layout to here, 21 feet from the actual asphalt of the road to here. And then this is 21 feet setback, and then this is the garage, which is 29 feet setback.
okay, so where's the 8 feet where that were?
Who, 8?
Oh,
That's,
8 feet closer. It's 8 feet closer. That's what it is. from
yes.
What it is now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to circle back to that image that this would be as you're going down Barn Hill, you would see. I mean, you have the second. This is, I think, what Dave Veach was saying. You have the second story that's meeting that increase, and the porch, but there's an openness there, and then it goes to the house, and then there's another setback. That is the garage.
That's correct, yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So I hate to belabor this fill issue, but I still don't, you said during your presentation, we can't put any more fill. And so I guess I'll just ask you, why?
One of the challenges of filling is the stability of the slope, not going towards the south to the back of the lot, but the side slopes to the neighbors. So we have to leave a little bit of room at the toe of each of those slope so that stormwater won't be directed onto the neighbor. So we need to collect it along the property line and send it to the back. So we could fill more, we could go to 2-to-1 slope, and probably gain maybe a foot in height, but we'd have a 2-to-1 slope that went right to the property lines and no way to manage runoff.
Well, that's important. So it's like a physics question.
And
Yeah, a
the
little
other
bit.
issue is, this is the, retaining wall can only be 3 feet in height, if it's gonna be on the property line, so that restricts how much you can fill and still be held back by that wall.
Yeah, and also, have you thought about asking us for a variance, given, I mean, I mean, we allow variances, we do, especially when you meet the criteria, so,
Well, you know, I think Kevin's probably gonna kill me, because I said, oh, there's no way we're gonna get a variance.
why though? Why wouldn't you?
I guess past experience
No,
would be, sorry, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but, I mean, I would argue that this lot certainly meets the criteria for
Right,
a variance. Now, whether or not the hardship piece we'd get there,
well, you can't
perhaps-
build a bigger house on it unless you get closer to the street, so that's a hardship
Yeah,
right there.
yep.
And then you're gonna remain a 2-bedroom house, and it's so much bigger, it seems like a lot of work for the same amount of bedrooms. I can't help it.
Well, I mean, there's a bonus room which can act as additional space and stuff like
Not
that.
according to the health agent.
Well, I know, the doorway, but there's certainly more living area for that, so, they think it's, you know, again, it's enough space for what they need with the family, even though it is the 2 bedrooms, but.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'd be happy to look at a variance, I just,
I mean, if we do a straw vote, you might want to do that. It depends.
I mean, I did say
I don't know
earlier-
how people are going to vote.
I did say earlier, that in the last 10 years, this
You
is the
did.
most
Yeah. No, and
topographically
we heard you.
challenging lot
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've
we heard
done.
you. You would know, if anyone knows about topography, it would be you, sir.
Yeah.
So, you're right. Let's see. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave each seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
And Jenny? And Paul?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right, deliberations. Paul?
Well, I think that the concept of bringing the house up and still having it be about the same level as the remaining houses on the road is significant, and it makes it much more attractive than it would be otherwise. And I think that the fact that you have 21 feet between paved portion of the road and the extent of the housing development is significant enough that, for me, at least on Barn Hill Road, where you're going down there, I don't see that as a problem, frankly. And I think that, given that overall and the site that you're working with, I think it's a substantial change to the neighborhood, but it's not substantially detrimental, and I think it is a good project.
Okay, Lee?
I agree with Paul. This is a very challenging site. And I think that the way the house is designed, the way it's staggered, the way it's just a small portion of it that's actually the 13 feet from the pavement. It's just a small portion of the house. Everything else is in the front open porch is going to be very attractive, and it's going to help with the appearance that it's right on the street. I don't think it's going to feel like it's right on the street. I'm not voting today, but if I were, I would be in favor of this. I think it's a great improvement. Once again, that I wouldn't want to live in a house that was set way down either, so
Yeah.
that'd be me.
Dave Veach, deliberations.
Yes, well, when I first was looking at the application and looking at that 13 feet, as opposed to the 21 or whatever's there, I thought, wow, I wonder why. I think they've done a very good job of explaining why. I do trust in this case that they've looked at this probably every way, sideways, upside down, inside out, and weighed all of the different consequences of perhaps trying to increase the fill or, you know, keeping the garage low so that you got to drive down the driveway and turn in and all the various reasons they've given why they might not want to do that. And and essentially, the short version is I'm in agreement, I agree with Paul. I think that we, you know, we're getting a little confused, and the 13 feet, as it turns out, is to the property line, and this is true, but that's to the road layout. So to the pavement, we gotta add another 8 to 10 feet. So it's still a I find in this, and for that kind, for Barn Hill Lane, and in being able to have it, get it up so the first floor is not so far below, and given the actual physical setting of the distances and then the porch and the way it will all look, I think it's a trade-off that I think they found a good solution. And I don't think that is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think they've done a good job. And the alternatives to me is, yeah, there may be some ways that we could find, but boy, I think they've struck a pretty good balance, and I'll support it.
So on the positive side, there have been several renovations and additions, as you pointed out on your summary, Jamie, very helpful. 12 out of 27, you know, not including your property, so that's like 44%. That's a healthy amount of activity on that street, and I support that, of course. And another positive is the gross floor area. That also is very much in line with the neighborhood, you know, using those numbers as a proxy for size. We have 6 homes on Barn Hill Lane that are larger or nearly equal out of 15. So that's a great, you know, that's 40%. And then on the other property, Chatfield, 11 out of 27 homes. So it's very much size-wise, based on gross floor area, in line. On the negative side, the height, which has been explained, and you've done a great job, but you are still 7 feet taller than your neighbor on 36 and 6.5 feet taller and on 56. So I'm just questioning the height. And then the increase in the nonconformity to the road, that's where I'm struggling. But I too, you know, am supportive of wanting to make those improvements. I totally get it, and I would want to, support it, but my concerns are the a little bit of the height, and then the height coupled with the proximity to the street. So just saying that I'm still deliberating.
Okay, Ed, if you were voting?
So I prefer when there's a nonconformity like to the street right now, that you go the other way on the nonconformity, not increase the nonconformity dramatically. I think it would make it one of the closest houses to the street. And I have to say, when I was out there, I was couldn't really understand why you were moving it that close to the street. And I'd prefer it to go the other way. But I grasp your argument. This house probably, you know, needs to go that close to the house to be built. Could you build a different house? Perhaps, but if I was voting, you know, it's sort of a toss-up here. But I think you've done a good job, and I probably would vote in the affirmative.
Dave Nixon, deliberations.
Well, Steve used the word looming when he was describing the closeness of the proposed structure to the road. And when you look at the southwest elevation side, you see exactly what he's talking about. that this accentuates the height aspect that Jenny was talking about. And also bringing that whole second story, second floor, that much closer to the road. So even though you have some room on the porch down underneath, I say that, but for me, the visual is the loomingness of that second story and the closeness of it to the road and the extra height that I just think would be detrimental and in a major way to the neighborhood. I don't see driving up and down that street anything that's this close to the street. I don't see anything that's this high. And I don't see anything that has this aspect of coming close to it, coming after you. So the way it stands, I would not support it. I would really like to see a redesign of the front of the house. I mean, I understand why you can't go back, okay. But I would urge you, if that's what happens, to see if you can't redesign the front of the house. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So I noticed the word looming as well, but I also noticed the word trade-off that Dave Veach noted, and I was persuaded by Paul. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of increasing nonconformities, especially when it's the street. And even more importantly, when it's the neighbors, which this isn't. But I kind of fall in that, I know we're not necessarily supposed to comment that much about the design, but I do think that front design contributes negatively to something getting closer to the street. So I too would like to see you come back with a different design or a variance. So today, I'm leaning towards no. Ginny, do you want to say what you would do? Because that might be helpful.
No, okay. Yeah, well, like I said, those are my two negatives were the height and the road, the increase of the road. And I'm still deliberating, but I do lean towards more what Mr. Nixon and I think Randy were saying. So I would probably, I want to support it, but I would rather see maybe a redesign of a smaller scale.
What would you like to do, Mr. Norcross?
We would like to withdraw without prejudice, please.
Okay. Paul?
I will move to grant the requested withdrawal without prejudice.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
As do I. Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you.
All right, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll see you on the other side. We are back. All right, so we're going to go to 107 Highland Ave, and again, this is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on 6/13/2024. Continued.
Application number 24-059, Highland Realty Trust, care of George Riley, 63 Brook Trail Road, Brewster, Mass. 02631. Owner of property located at 107 Highland Avenue, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15E, Block 55, Lot 48. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The proposed dwelling will conform to road and abutter setback requirements. However, it will remain non-conforming as it is and will not be 100% larger than the guest house. The existing building coverage is 2,558 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 2,604 square feet, where 2,900 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains a dwelling and a guest house where only a dwelling would be allowed, and contains 99.09 feet of frontage where 100 feet is required. The lot contains 24,049 square feet in R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protected Bylaw.
George Riley, welcome.
Thank you. I'm representing the Highland Trust at 107 Highland Avenue. Oh, well, there we are. The existing house that they wish to demolish is built in 1920, and the engineering survey said that the foundation was inadequate and failing, and the framing was completely inadequate, and they felt it was cost-effective to go for a new building. And they're proposing a similar square footage size building. If you could go back to the site plan there, thank you. The proposed building would meet all bulk regulations, setbacks, height, building coverage, et cetera. The only unusual thing about it slightly is that, if I can get this to work. Am I getting it? There we go. Here's the light outline is the existing house, and the new house is moved to the right, closer to this property line in this house here. And we're proposing to raise the foundation height from the original house about 2 feet. And the reason for that is that they would like to get an underground or a drive-in garage coming in here. And so if we raise the house up, we can get that with little trouble. The grade change is really slight because it really matches this. This goes downhill here, so these grades would look perfectly normal, and it would allow for this terrace retaining wall to slope down and plant in here, because when we take this house down and move this house here, the garage becomes much more exposed to the street. And then by doing this, we can then make it look natural and fit in. So if you go back to the, I guess the sketch, so you can see now, normally the house is existing is down at this grade, but we're breaking it up to this grade and making it similar to this house here. So then it would slope down, and then you could plant this and you wouldn't see the garage in the back. So that's the point of making that work. So to make this house compatible, we've taken if you go, there's a picture there showing the current house and the proposed house? We have it somewhere. Keep going. I don't know. It should be there. Maybe it's not. Try that one. Now go down. That's the existing house, and that's the proposed. So we're trying to make it as compatible as possible with the two by emulating that covered entryway and making the house architecturally compatible with the neighbor house. So that's it, really. So if you have questions.
Okay, would you like to go through some of the criteria? Do you have a
Yes.
copy of that?
Yes.
The ones that are applicable, only the ones that are applicable
I'll
is
do that.
fine.
So, adequacy of site, there'll be little change in building coverage from the existing coverage, number of bedrooms, and no real change in conforming to the setback regulations. The compatibility of the size of the structure is actually less massive than the existing one, so I think that certainly is compatible. Extent of the proposed increase from non-conforming nature of the structure or use, there's no change. Suitability of the site, including impact of neighboring properties, well, we feel that to be, actually, I think it'll probably be an improvement for the neighboring properties, really, just to get rid of the somewhat decrepit building. Impact of scale, siting and mass on neighborhood visual character, it's really even less impactful than the existing. Sewage disposal, we've designed a new sewage system that is acceptable to the Board of Health. And traffic flow, no change. Noise, no change. Adequacy of utilities, no change. Visual impact on the neighborhood, I think it will be minimal.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will read the two correspondence. One's from the health agent and one's from the Historical Commission. First, from Christina Bassett on June 13th, 2024. The CHC, the Chatham Historical Commission, found that the home on 107 Highland Ave is historically significant and imposed a 12-month demolition delay, which expires on November 23rd, 2024. Then we have a note from our health agent, Judith Giorgio, from 6/11/2024. I've reviewed the proposed plan for this property. The plan to demo and rebuild the main dwelling does not appear to add sewer flow to the property. The septic system was designed and approved for a 3-bedroom main house and a 2-bedroom guest house. I have no concerns. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Ed?
I guess, could you give me a little brief history of this project?
Of the project?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know, brief. Originally, the owners of this property owned the abutting properties on either side. And they originally wanted to subdivide the middle property into two and add those sections that they subdivided to the abutting lot, so that there would have been 2 lots rather than 3 lots. And that the back part of the lot would go to the house at 99, and the front part of the lot would go to the house at 119. And so they came before the board, and the board couldn't find a way to create a non-conforming lot, which is essentially what it would have done. So they've gone back to the drawing board here and decided to try and make it work for them at the best way by meeting the current zoning regulations. And that's pretty much how this has come about. So we went to the Historical Commission. They found it was a historical and opposed a delay. And because we went to the zoning board to get approval for the lot, that delay expired. And so we went back to them again. So it's been quite a long haul getting this to work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dave Nixon, questions?
No questions.
Dave Veach, questions?
No questions.
Ginny?
No questions.
Steve?
What is the exterior finish?
Shingles.
Okay, because I was wondering if it was
Yeah,
stucco or
no,
something.
it's
Shingles?
just regular, normal cedar shingles.
Okay, all righty, thank you, that's it.
And Lee?
No questions.
And Paul?
Maybe I'm answering my own question here, but I see you've got a 2-car garage underneath the structure.
Right.
Theoretically, you have a garage in the back of
We
the
do,
property.
yeah. And why do we need so many garages? That's the question.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
the
Well,
property,
okay.
the piece of
The
the
property
back
to the right,
is not really a garage, is it?
no, the property to the right, which they want to have this as sort of maybe a place where they can park, doesn't have a garage. The garage in the back, the son of the daughter on the right has commandeered that for storage of his antique or special cars, so they can't use that as a garage. And then the other garage, it's been taken up by Mrs. Jagarian's painting, studio. So in the end, for all these garages, they really don't have any place to put their car. That's pretty much it.
Well, and the building to the rear of this property is actually residence, right?
No, there's a guest house above and a garage below, in the rear.
But not a guest house that satisfies our requirements in town zoning.
Well, it doesn't, that's why we came for the special permit, because the lot is not big enough to support a guest house. It was pre-existing. And we got a special permit to go before you to remodel that garage. I think it's in the filing here somewhere.
Do you see any other garages under houses on Highland?
I don't think so, but be honest with you, I have not really looked for that.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions, so Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And I vote yes as well. Okay, deliberations. Steve?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that is there still a demolition delay imposed on this house until November?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So you can't do anything till November
that's right.
anyway?
No.
Okay. The second thing that I kind of, I can't get through to my head is that the building in the back is done, and it looks like it's livable, and it's being advertised as a guest house without the primary house being done. So you might end up with a guest house and no primary house,
Well, if we,
or a garage and no primary house.
well, that's the whole point of not taking
So
it down.
to me, this project was done sort of in reverse order.
Yes,
Sort of got things, the cart in front of the horse.
in a way.
Okay, nothing can be done until November anyway, I don't think. But it's a fine-looking house, but I think the process was not followed very well.
Yeah, well, let's hear it. It's complicated.
It's actually very complicated. So let me just show you real quick. They came in 2020 to redo the existing guest house. At that time in 2020, the main house, as it exists today, is much larger. It has a full basement, first floor, and second floor. So in our guest house provision, the bylaw states the guest house can be no larger than 50% the size of the main house. This main house now has 3 floors. It's going to a garage level and basically a ranch living level. So it won't have a second floor. So it now is smaller than the, almost, yeah. They're roughly the same size, I believe, now.
Building coverage, but the
Coverage-wise.
floor area is probably less, yeah.
Right. So they had specially permitted to do the guest house in 2020. And now that they've chosen to make the existing main house smaller, it's just an intensification of the nonconformity.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, questions? Lee, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, sorry.
Paul? You already asked your question? Did we already ask over here? No? Yes? I forget already. No? All right, any questions over here? No? All right, neither do I. Paul?
Move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And yes.
As do I. Okay, now deliberations. Steve? Back to you.
He's still scratching his head.
If you were voting, which you're not,
If I were voting, I mean, it's, that, what's there now can't remain. So I guess it needs to be refurbished or rebuilt. So I guess I would be, it's a fine-looking house that you're gonna put there. So I guess our hands are kind of tied in that, we can't live with what's there now, so I don't know if we have any other options. So, but it's a fine-looking house. I would vote to approve it if I were voting.
all right, Ginny, deliberations?
The proposed house is an attractive image rendering of the existing house, lower height, which we really rarely ever see that, if ever. It's meeting the road and abutter setbacks, building coverage 46 square feet, nominal, right, change. And I think it meets all our criteria, so I would support it.
All right, Lee?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I appreciate moving the house back from the street. I appreciate the lowered height. I know the owners of the properties had something else in mind once upon a time, and I appreciate them working out a solution that fits nicely.
And Dave Veach, deliberations?
Yeah, I agree with previous. It's not, I think it's an improvement over the situations that exists on the ground right now anyway. And I don't think that that there being a shuffling of the percentage of the guest house versus the main house is a substantial detriment to the neighborhood or to the town. So I think it meets our criteria. I'll support it.
And Ed?
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to get my sort of hands around what was going on here, but thank you for the explanation. It's a modest increase in the coverage, and I would support the project.
And Dave Nixon?
Yeah, I'm all for lots of garages, so this is, well, no matter what they're used for. But, the thing I like best about your plan, frankly, is beside pushing it back, I mean, right now, it looks like a big gigantic parking lot.
Right.
So by putting in vegetation and all that from the street to the left, I think is a great idea, and it's gonna be so much better than what it is now.
Yeah, and I bet you the historic will like your new rendering too, because I think your purpose and, when you look at the purpose and intent of the bylaw, you really are preserving the natural, architectural, historic asset of the community with that kind of rendering. We don't always see that, and I think that's an important street, and I like the project.
Right.
Paul?
Well, I frankly take a different view of it. I think that the house as now proposed is not consistent with what is existing on Highland. When you approach this property from going towards the golf course, it seems to me that the garage under is totally inconsistent with any of the other houses on Highland. I don't think it's necessary with respect to the property itself. I understand the way they're using the property, they may like to do it that way, but I don't think it's consistent with the neighborhood. And I think the look of the house, as you look at it from the front, with the large roof above, and given the elevations that are involved, does not contribute to the overall neighborhood feel, which I think is important with respect to this historic area. So my view would be that it is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I apologize for going before you, but,
That's all right.
so now would you like to close, move?
All right, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberation.
No, I'm sorry, move for the vote. Conditions?
All right, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with presumably the board wants some conditions.
Yeah, I think Highland Ave. I mean, I don't know what, I'm trying to remember with the conditions we put on across the street, kitty corner across the street, but I would. 86 maybe, 96, somewhere in there, 86, 80, I can't remember. There's one most recently on Highland that we looked at. It's a 4-square that they were adding on
Yeah,
to.
we did that, and we also gave another one a continuance. on Highland.
86 Highland had the all condition 1, 2, A, B, and C, so June 30th to Labor Day. So all
So
of the standard
I would say that we should be imposing these same conditions as we did in that case.
I agree.
Okay. So do you second the,
And I second
And how do you
that,
vote?
and I vote in the affirmative.
okay.
I vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
And
I'll
Paul?
vote no.
And I'm going to vote yes, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up, we have Chatham Dog Club, and Ed is going to be voting for me on this one. I'm going to still run the meeting, but I'm not going to vote on this one. Mr. Norcross, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Just wait till we get that read, the
Oh, yeah, sure,
application read,
sorry.
and,
Jumping the gun.
Application number 24-045, the Chatham Dog Club, care of James M. Norcross Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Lessee of properties located at 82 and 102 Meeting House Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4E, Block 25E, Lot A, and Map 4E, Block 15, Lot 0. The applicant proposes to incorporate an overnight kennel use to the existing personal and household services dog care and training facility with retail component, which requires the grant of a special permit. The lot contains 42,827 square feet in an industrial zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, and 8D2B in Appendix 1 of the Protective Bylaw. This was continued from May 9th, 2024.
Mr. Norcross.
Good
welcome.
afternoon, Jamie Norcross, representing the Chatham Dog Club. Ann Corrigan in the blue is here with me today as well. She is the owner of the Chatham Dog Club. We were here just about a month ago, and at that meeting, a neighbor came up and spoke about concerns relative to noise and past incidents with noise. And so it was suggested at that time that records requests would be made to the Chatham Police Department. Mr. Nixon also asked to have Bob Stello attend today as the property owner, as his name was referenced by the neighbor as during the time that she spoke as well. So Chief Anderson from the Chatham Police has submitted an email to you along with copies of reports, and he references that, let's see, they do not find many complaints regarding any barking dogs at 82 Meeting House Road, which is our property. There was one complaint where no violations were observed or overheard, which was back in 2020. So a complaint was made back in 2020. The police department went out and found that there was no issues with noise. I also spoke with the animal control officer, and she had a fairly lengthy conversation with her, and she thinks the facility is very well run. She has no concerns relative to noise. She did mention, there's no report in here that was sent, she did mention there was a complaint when the facility was first opened back in 2016, and she spent a significant amount of time at that time ensuring and reviewing the property. They come out, they sit for a period of time, different times of the day, over the course of a number of days, and found that there were no issues relative to noise. Mr. Stello, as I mentioned, is here. He's happy to speak or answer any questions if you have any from him. There also are a number of letters that were sent in from customers of the Chatham Dog Club that talk about the mannerisms, the characteristics of the dogs, the noise levels, the barking, any fighting that they've witnessed, which they indicate they see none. I'd also point out, and this was mentioned by the dog officer to me as well, is that Ann screens the dogs before they come into her facility and join the Chatham Dog Club. So it's not just you show up, you fill out a form, you get the dog to become part of the daycare. There's a screening process so Ann can ensure that the mannerisms and the dog will be appropriate and the behavioral aspects of the dog is fit for her facility, because she wants to keep the dogs calm. She doesn't want noise. She wants to, again, continue to run a very smooth and efficient operation that's enjoyed by a lot of customers. So that would be our presentation relative to the noise. Again, Mr. Stello's here if you have
Yeah,
any questions for him.
We would like to hear from Mr. Stello,
Sure.
and then Mr. Stello, if you would, this is your property, correct? You're the owner? Okay. Just state your name if you would.
Yep, I'm Robert Stello, the owner of the property.
Yeah, welcome.
I can say right from the very beginning, I have a lot of people that rent and use that property. And it is an industrial property, but I really try to keep my property up nice, and I try to be a good neighbor. And I also want to stress that the dog club's on one side, I got a rental on the right side of it, and there's just a little bit back, there's another person renting, and there's another one behind that. I've talked to people, and I've expressed to some people that I could bring in probably 6, 7 people in here right now, if you'd like to hear them, that they actually live there. I'm there a lot more than my wife liked me to be there, but I'm there many nights, I was there at 7:30 the other night, and it was barking, and I went down the road, and it's on the opposite side of the street. There was nobody at the dog club, and I've continually have that problem being on the other side. And even one of the neighbors on that side literally told me one time that they complained. I said, well, I left this place at 8 o'clock at night, and it was barking all over, and there's nobody at the dog club, and it's coming from your side of the street. And what I got for reply was, that's my neighbor's dogs, they're always barking. Well, I can't control that. As far as some of the complaints and noises and stuff, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind that industrial park. I try to set myself a little bit separate from that. I do, but there's I don't control. There's people that speed the cars in there. There's delivery trucks. There's a lot of noise. We are amazed that Ian does such a good job, to be honest with you, how she has that many dogs there with that much commotion. You know, dogs out when a truck goes by or whatever. I mean, I've been in there, and I mean, I wish I taught school for a long time. I had that kind of control, to be honest with you. I've had neighbors that come up to me, not neighbors, and I've had people that come up and said, I'm really glad you're renting to her, that there's really a need for it, that, you know, we have emergencies, we wish we could do something else, is why she's trying to do what she's doing now. I don't really need the hassle as far as the property goes. I think a lot of stuff with the neighbors, I mean, you know, it's a busy road and whatever. I even offered one time, if you got a problem, come see me. I could put 4 buildings across there. I got 4 lots that are sitting there. And I've had people who wanted to buy it. I wouldn't sell it unless I know someone's going to be a good neighbor. It affects me as well as everybody that's renting there. And my feeling, the people that are there now, you know, they don't need someone else to come in and cause a problem. So I'd like to think that we do care. I also tell you that at one time when I haven't heard anything in 2 years or better. It's been at least 2 years. I spent quite a few $1,000s, and I put cypress, you know, Leland cypress right across the whole area there, because I was told that might help any sound or whatever. And truthfully, I feel it was a waste of money because you still get complaints and there's no sound. As far as the police goes, and they were there, I mean, incessantly for 3 or 4 weeks. They were there all the time when there was some complaining going on. They were there mornings, nights. I used to be there probably 6 in the morning many times. I leave 7, 8 at night. And all the time, the police are there. I even stop a couple of times, and literally one of the policemen says, it's a waste of our time. What are we doing here? In 3, 4 weeks, there was nothing going on. The animal rescue person was there off and on. They're down there all the time. So, be honest with you, I don't know where this is all coming from. But I feel like it really isn't warranted as far as being a problem. I mean, there's so much noise on that road, it's unbelievable. But I don't know why the dogs aren't barking at that, and they're not.
Okay, well, thank you
And
very much.
I'll answer any other questions you
Yeah.
have.
No, okay, thank you. So at this point, I think in the hearing, we're going to say, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? And I just want to give you the caveat that if you already have a letter, please let me know, and then you get to pick whether you want to talk or you want me to read the letter. So I just want to finish the sentence. If there's anybody here, raise their hand or on Microsoft Teams to speak in favor. So I see you, sir. Do you have a letter?
I do not.
Oh, okay, head up.
So I lived at the house at 102 from February to...
If you could just state your name.
Oh, my name is Chris Ripa.
Yeah.
So I rented the house from Rob at 102 from February 2017 until December 2023, so just shy of 7 years. In that time, you know, especially at night, you know, I'm not, you know, I work full-time, I always have, so I'm not there during the day, but at night to say that if I ever heard a dog barking, very similar to what Rob said, you know, I would go outside to see, where is this? Always across the street. There was a couple times where, being home, I would see even a dog in the street, which I didn't want it to make, wanted to make sure it wasn't to next door. I would always run back down that way as well. Another, kind of thought of mine is that if we're not allowed to overnight dogs here at the Chatham Dog Club, those dogs are going to be somewhere unattended. So if we are able to have them where they're monitored and attended, it's going to be, limiting noise for everywhere else as well, both Chatham and neighboring towns.
Okay, so you're basically saying you didn't notice any problems when you
Yeah,
were
no,
there?
never any
Okay.
problems. Even
All
then, starting COVID, my wife, she was, switched over to working fully remote. So she was there during the day too. Never any complaints or
Okay.
even comments on dogs barking during the day as well.
All right, well, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
All right, is there anybody else here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Yes, ma'am, if you could, do you have a letter that you've sent?
No.
Okay, then, please go ahead.
I'll be brief.
Yep, when you get up there, you can start talking.
Okay.
And just state your name.
My name is Susan Latour. I'm a resident of Chatham, and my dog has been going to the Chatham Dog Club for years and years and years. And I just want to say that when I go there, dogs are not barking because they have this wonderful care there and they are engaged. And I have to admit that my dog barks at home. But she does not bark at the Chatham Dog Club because she's well cared for, and they just have dogs there that are very they are wonderful with dogs, and they accept dogs there that get along together. Thank you. That's all.
Thank
Just
you.
want to support them.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Going once? Nope, nobody else? Okay. I am now going to read correspondence. There's going to be some correspondence that are from people that do not live in the town of Chatham. I'll name who they are and indicate that they have written in favor. Counsel, you already read the letter from the police?
I did,
So I'm going to leave that out,
Okay.
if you would. If you would consent to that. Then we have a letter from Darcy Sequin. She does live in Chatham. It does not state her address, but she says she's in full support of granting a special permit for overnight boarding at 82 and 102 Meeting House Road for the owner of Chatham Dog Club, Ian Corrigan. I live on Morton Road, which is also almost opposite of the dog daycare heading east, and my family owns a warehouse in Commerce Park. I've never heard of dogs barking, as the property is well controlled. I believe Ian Corrigan is a very responsible owner and dog trainer and would not allow the nuisance barking to occur any time, day or night. And that came to us on June 12, 2024. Next, we have a note from Peg Morse, 8 Cutter Road, West Chatham, who writes, I am in support of the Chatham Dog Club being allowed overnight boarding. My dog has attended Chatham Dog Club 5 days a week for 10 years and was with Ian Corrigan prior to the opening of the location on Meeting House. She has never been in a fight, had any injury, or contracted any illness while attending daycare. Ian screens all the dogs and does not accept aggressive dogs. Ann and her staff engage the dogs in supervised activities throughout the day, keeping them occupied. A staff member is always with the dogs. There is no free-for-all, just good play. They have an uncanny way of getting 40 dogs to nap, and 12 to 2, the club is silent. I am sure nighttime would be the same. I know some may worry about noise and barking, but that isn't allowed. I have experienced a few dogs running up to the fence barking. Within 60 seconds, the staff has them corralled and inside. As a matter of fact, Ann has helped me with my dog's barking problems. She is a kind, effective trainer. All the dogs seem to know the drill, and they all love the staff. This is a testimony to the work Ann and her staff put into establishing a routine. I am sure overnight would be the same. The motto, a tired dog is a good, happy dog, works, and that was received on June 12th, 2024. Next, we have a letter from Barbara Matson, and she writes on May 27th, 2024, regarding the Chatham Dog Club. I'm writing to express my ardent support for this wonderful organization. For those who work, it is a godsend to have such competent and caring people available to help with our pets. Ann Corrigan interviews dogs and owners prior to granting membership, making sure that as best she can that all will be suitable for group interaction. I've witnessed her silence a room full of excited dogs with a motion of her hand and soft words. Not only is she rather an amazing dog whisperer, but her staff appears to also similarly imbued. My dog, Tedrick, while habitually unruly on walks with me, inexplicitly behaves under their auspices. Now I am retired, he attends only 3 days a week, but looks forward to those days for the sociability he enjoys at the hands and paws of the Chatham dog people and pets. If only our dogs could board overnight at this wonderful facility. When you think of anxiety dog owners experience when situations such as health issues require brief absences from their homes, I hope you will favorably consider granting this request. Overnight accommodation will fill a need in our community, and if history and reputation are indicators, as I believe they are, Chatham Dog Club is conscientious candidate for providing this service. As 10-plus years patron of Ann and her crew, I heartily endorse approval of the application, and that came on June 3rd, 2024. Next, we have a note from June 5th, 2024, from Fran Ellingham. My dog Callie has been a member of Chatham Dog Club for 5 years. She goes to daycare 3 days a week. I was apprehensive at first about bringing her somewhere without me, but the level of care she receives from the team is outstanding. Callie had to go through an introduction process, as other members do, to ensure each dog is friendly and will flourish in a setting like this. It is so important for a dog's well-being not only to stay physically active, but mentally active as well. The dogs at Chatham Dog Club receive top-notch care, exercise, enrichment, and stimulation. The Chatham Dog Club is more like a family where we celebrate each dog's birthday and holidays in fun ways. Ann and her staff are amazing, and I trust them unconditionally with Callie. The dogs are treated as their own, not just as customers. I urge you to approve their request to have overnight accommodations for their clients. Next, we have a note from Tim Bailey and Katie McConnell from 778 Riverview Drive. And they write, my wife Katie and I have reviewed the plans for the proposed overnight facility for dogs at Meeting House Road under the ownership of Ann Corrigan of the Chatham Dog Club. We have been customers for several years and can affirm their outstanding professionalism, dedication, of fostering a harmonious environment for dogs. Ann's meticulous approach involves conducting thorough behavior analysis for all dogs before allowing them to join and interact with existing customers. She displays no hesitation in refusing potential clients if their dog's behavior threatens to disrupt the club's secure and harmonious atmosphere. With an impressive background in show dog activities, including both judging and training AKC champions, and possesses a comprehensive understanding of proper dog obedience and behavior, we envision the overnight facility as a natural extension of the Chatham Dog Club's already pristine and secure environment. In our opinion, the overnight facility in question does not pose any detriment of any kind. In fact, we find overnight facility to be consistent with the use in that neighborhood. And we pledge our full support for the above project. Next, we have a note from Pat Long, 697 Main Street in Chatham, received on June 6, 2024. I'm writing in support of the Chatham Dog Club and their request for overnight accommodation. Their organization has been a godsend to us once we took on an Australian Shepherd who requires much exercise and attention. While we worked, we knew that the dog was well cared for. While we had home construction, the dog was able to be cared for outside the chaotic construction, noise, and commotion. We look forward to a well-needed overnight care in the future for the town. The club is very well structured, organized. They carefully choose the dogs they allow on the premises. I've never seen disruption in process or any dog out of control. Their care and concern is of the highest standard. I'd be happy to answer questions the board may have. And she gives her phone number, and that was received on June 10th, 2024. Next, we have a note from Gloria Hicks, who's here. Are you going to speak against? Would you mind if I don't read your letter then? Okay. Okay, next I have a letter from Jill Riker, and she writes on May 21, 24. I'm writing in support of the Chatham Dog Club's plan to extend the business to include overnight accommodations. We have been sending our dog Finnegan to the Chatham Dog Club since he was a puppy. Ann Corrigan and her staff are loving experts in the care of dogs of all ages and temperaments. She is the consummate professional who not only runs a successful business, but she also truly is passionate about the dogs in our care. Our dog is sensitive and can be nervous around other dogs, and a master dog trainer helped Finn acclimate to being surrounded by dogs. She worked her magic, and now he looks forward to playing with his buddies. All I have to do is mention that he's going to doggy daycare, and he runs to the car. He loves spending his day at Chatham Dog Club. The problem for us has been finding someone like Ann and her staff who would care for Finn while we are away. As beloved part of our family, we want to feel that he is happy and safe when he's not with us. To that end, we have tried several options. We are now sending him to a boarding facility 40 minutes from our home. Not an ideal situation. I'm sure many people would agree it's a real need for overnight home for our pets in the Chatham area. The added benefit to Chatham Dog Club expansion is what we know from our experience in their daycare, that Finn will be loved and well cared for physically and emotionally while he is with them. As for the concern of the noise from barking dogs, I'll tell you that when I drop him off, as well as pick him up, I never hear barking. If I were not there for Finn, I would not realize there were dogs inside. You would not ask for a better home for our family dogs. Chatham Dog Club boarding facility would be a great benefit to Chatham and its surrounding towns. I hope you'll approve the expansion. And finally, we have letters from the following people who live in the following towns on the following dates. Marlene Clapp of Harwich on 6/6/2024 writes in favor. Monica Kaplis, Harwich Port, 6/12/2024 writes in favor. Robert and Catherine Gutherman from Brewster, 6/12/2024, also in favor. Lynn Winchester of Brewster, 5/30/24. Joan Murray, South Yarmouth, 5/28/24. Sheila Fitzgerald, Yarmouth Port, 5/28/24. All write in favor. That concludes the correspondence. Next, we will see if anybody, either here or on Microsoft Teams, has a specific question or wishes to speak against this application. Yes, ma'am, if you could go up to the microphone. No one online, right? Maybe.
Hi, Gloria Hicks. I live at 95 Meeting House Road, directly across the street from the Chatham Dog Club. And I hope you received all the documentation and reports that I gave Monday.
We read all those reports.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And I just wanted to go through some of them. First of all, I heard a dog barking there, which I said at the last meeting, for 3 hours or 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock. I called the owner, and she denied having a dog overnight. I called Mr. Stello about the same problem, and he said he would speak to her. I've never heard dogs barking in Commerce Park behind this building. So with that, there was, my neighbor called from 87 Meeting House Road, Megan McCosker, to report a noise complaint from the location above. The noise is from 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon every day. Megan tried to call the owner for months, and her number is blocked. She just went over there in person, and the owner is having a class at this time and told her to call the police. Megan did not look to speak to an officer at this time, but would like this complaint documented. The next one, the owner of the Chatham Dog Club called to speak with an officer about a neighbor harassing her, which in fact is Megan McClosker. She is looking for options to keep her off her property to stop the harassment.
I'm not positive that you could speak for someone else, especially to this degree.
I'm just reading a
ma'am.
police report.
Those are police entries, but they're not actually reports that I'm aware of. I think they're like a log of the police.
But they're public information.
True, they are.
So I'm just reading a report that I picked up from the police department.
Okay.
Thank you. May I say the reason for the harassment was because Megan McClosker was going
but-
over there.
Well, I think we need to stick to.
All right, I'll just read the reports. McCosker was served in hand with a trespass
Not
notice.
that kind of thing, though, because we don't
Well,
really
it's
know.
on the report.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily fair to Chatham Dog Club that, that there's a trespass issue, because it might have been
Well-
something between the two parties.
Well, it might be, but it's a police report, so it's public information, which is why I picked these up.
Yeah, but they don't go to the Chatham Dog Club whether or not they should have an overnight guest. Overnight
But I'm
dogs.
trying to tell you about a history of problems with the Chatham Dog Club and the neighbors across the street, myself and the
No,
Bakers
but if you want to
included.
talk about yourself, that's fair. But I think.
But
we're-
not a public police report?
Well, I'll let you continue for another moment, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. And Officer Little arrived and had Corrigan sign the paperwork. I then went to the McCosker house and explained the notice in great detail. McCosker eventually stated she understood the order and would not go to the kennel. The next packet of reports are from calls that have been made by me and other people in the area about what sounds like gunshots in
Okay,
Commerce.
we did read that part,
Okay.
and I read it thoroughly.
Okay.
And I don't think we can talk about gunshots in this hearing.
And not in relationship to setting off dogs, my dog and other dogs
No,
in the
but we
neighborhood?
don't know if Chatham Dog Club is making those noises by.
No, Chatham Dog Club is not making the
Okay.
gunshot noises.
Okay.
It's
good.
coming from Commerce Park.
Right, so I
Um,
don't think it's relevant to this hearing then, if there's gunshot noises. It's not fair to this applicant.
Okay, except it sets off my dog, it sets
I know,
off,
but it has nothing to do with this.
it wouldn't set off 20 dogs in the back of the building?
We don't know.
Okay. The next one is correspondence between me and my neighbor,
Okay, that would not be relevant.
okay? Even though she's afraid to speak?
She would have to come here and tell us that she's afraid to speak.
Okay, she was unwilling to do that because she's afraid to speak.
And we believe you that she, yeah.
Okay. And all the letters from clients are lovely. They don't live across the street. They drop their dogs off, they leave their dogs. I've told you at the previous meeting and what I said to Mrs. Sello about the noise, and the barking sets off my dog, it sets off the 3 dogs that bark incessantly next door. And I'd love to see 40 dogs nap. Unfortunately, the criteria does not address, I don't even know if I can, I'm basing this on the police reports that I picked up, that the behavior is hostile and intimidating. I don't like standing here either and talking about this.
No, and we appreciate that you are, because
All right.
we understand that there's some people that won't come and talk, even about, like, for example, something that's gonna happen right next door to their house that they really don't like, but they still won't come. So I think we
I-
get that as a zoning board.
All right, I understand. I'm just reading the police reports that I picked up. There is a great potential for increased barking with 20 dogs in the back of that building. I realize that people drop their dogs off. They don't live there. I am there all the time. I live there. So these are the things that I reported at the last meeting, and these are the concerns that I have.
And I just want to assure you that we did read all your correspondence.
Thank you.
We just selected what we would read
Okay.
tonight.
All right.
But we also understand that you live there and these
All right.
people come and go.
And I have called personally about those gunshots. I'm allowed to say
Yeah,
this, that
yeah.
I've called myself, and it sets off my dog.
Sure.
I'm concerned that it will be increased noise for the dogs for staying overnight.
If you could wrap it up, because you've already gone over the
All
5
right.
minutes.
The granting of this permit is a hardship for me, and as a full-time resident and taxpayer, I feel I deserve better. And although the Chatham Dog Club may have met some of the criteria, this special permit, upon the documentation that I submitted and what I've said today, I am strongly opposed to granting this permit.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having the courage to come. Counsel, would you like to rebut?
Just briefly, if I may. I think, again, the reports were in there from 2020. They were vetted by the police at that time. They were previously vetted by the dog officer, so the police department has done their diligence on this issue. I understand the letters in support from the customers. They come and go, as Ms. Hicks stated, but Mr. Stella was there. He might not live there year-round, but he practically lives in his office a lot of the time, so he is nearby. And he also said to you that he rents residential space to, I think, 3 other people around there, Bob, that are closer to the Chatham Dog Club, I believe, than Ms. Hicks' property, and they've indicated to him they have no issues with noise. With that, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I guess we're going to do questions from the board at this point. Jenny, questions?
Yeah, Jamie, how long has your applicant or your client been in the business? I thought you said 2016, but I thought it was 2013.
It's been at this location since 2016. It was in a prior location.
Okay.
Ann could probably tell you the dates in terms of operation. Ann, could you come up and answer
Well,
this?
just 10 years in business.
It's
in
been
this
10 years at
location?
this location.
In
She's
this
been in the
location.
industry for 49 years.
Okay,
as she explained
that's,
to me.
I
Okay.
just wanted to get a sense of how long. I thought you had said about 10 years. And I just wanted to I know you were here before in May, and we have what your summary was, but just want to reiterate, since we didn't really go over it today. The proposal is for 6 dogs overnight at 102.
Correct.
And
Sarah,
about maximum of 20 dogs at 82.
Right, sorry to interrupt. Sarah, would you mind pulling up the site plan? Just so everyone's aware that what address is which. So 82 is the house on the north, and that would be 6 dogs in that location. The building, 82 at the bottom, that would have up to 20 dogs, and then there's a staff member who is going to be living and renting the house, and will be monitoring the dogs that are in that building, and there will also be a video camera system, multiple cameras set up inside 82 that is going to stream over to the house so they can be monitored overnight.
And I know you don't have it on here, but we have it on this locus report. 95, where Ms. Hicks said that she lives, is across the street and sort of in between these two, correct? 95.
Roughly, yeah.
So do you have anything in here that approximates, I mean, is that like over 200 feet, 250 feet?
It's gotta be significant distance. So 95 is down, yet, I guess you're right in the middle there.
Right in the middle.
The road layout's probably 40 feet wide. The 82's gotta be set back 40 feet, 80 feet. Yeah, I would say 150 feet at least.
Could I offer something? Could I offer some support on this? So, Ginny, I did my Google Maps measure distance thing on some of this. So, 95 to the 82 building, going from the closest point of building, 219 feet, to 102, 95 to 102, again, closest point's 180 feet.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. And then another question I have is, Mr. Stello, you mentioned that this road is kind of an industrial road. I think I heard you, I know it's close to Commerce Park, which is an industrial park. Is the whole road like pretty industrial use, would you
That
say?
whole Commerce Park, the whole Commerce Park is industrial property. I own from the Catholic Church boundary. I own across to the entrance. I also own the next lot to the left of the entrance. So I own that whole area. There are 4 empty lots, that are undeveloped at this point. But that's all an industrial area.
And so that portion of the road is pretty much heavily trafficked with industrial.
It is currently or could be in the future because it's all industrial zone on that section right there.
Okay, zone, okay, thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Steve, questions?
Are there any modifications that need to be made to the building? I see on the site plan, there's a proposed fence down at the...
Right, there would be a structure there for an additional space for, they call it dog runs,
Like a dog
essentially.
run?
Yep.
Mhm. But there's no other modifications
No.
internally or externally that need to be done?
No.
To take care of this? The normal operations, I think I read someplace is 7:30 to 5:30. Do you know about how many tenants are there normally during the week, a regular day, an average?
Are you talking about dogs or about
The
people?
dogs, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about tennis. It's up to 40 is what, and I think, Ann, could you come up, Ann, if you don't mind?
Just announce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Ann Corrigan, owner of the Chatham Dog Club. We have up to 40 dogs a day at the Chatham Dog Club. We're currently waitlisted, so we have people that want to come in, so.
Very good. So you're relatively busy. Is there any, well, and I think Bob said something about planting some shrubs a while back to try to abate some of the noise along, I guess, 137?
Right, is it a way to try and address the concerns? So there's a number of Leland cypress, as you come up here. Bob thinks it's probably somewhere around 15 that's planted around the front of the property
Okay.
there.
So there has been some effort made to try to minimize any noise that there might be. I guess it's not really a question, but my concern is that at overnight, there's going to be up to 26 dogs here, 6 in the house and 20 in the building. It seems like a big responsibility for one person. Can you give us a little feedback on how difficult this might be for one person to
One person,
control?
you mean, the staff member that's
Yeah.
going to be staying in the house? Well, the dogs are going to be tired at the end of the day. We keep them really active.
Okay.
My clients tell me their dogs go home and they sleep and they're exhausted the next day even.
Okay.
So the dogs that come to the club, they're not just coming there for overnight care. They're coming there for a full day of activity, and then they're looking forward to rest. And that's why nap time it's really important for us, because we don't want them going all day and being tired and getting cranky at the end of the day. But it's a pattern that carries over at home as well. So when the dogs are not at the club, my clients tell me the dogs go down for a nap by themselves between 12 and 1:30. So we effectively have 40 dogs sleeping at one time. So that's how I expect it's going to happen.
So you think it's going to be manageable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Lee, questions?
Has there been any thought to putting another person in the actual kennel where the 20 dogs are going to be? Can you modify it so that there's a little spot for them?
I suppose we could. It's a warehouse, so there's not a shower, there's not a kitchen. Could I modify it? I have looked at all the dog kennels on Cape Cod, and out of the 12 that I pulled up, only 4 of them have overnight care. Okay, so across the country, it is commonplace to have the dogs by themselves. I have cameras throughout the facility. I have a staff member that's going to be on site, so I think the risk is pretty low.
Thank you.
Paul, questions?
I have no questions.
Dave Nixon, questions?
No questions.
Ed?
Yeah, I guess my question would be for Mr. Stello. What's the construction of these two properties? And the reason I'm asking that is, are they insulated? Do they have HVAC? And where I'm really going is, are they going to be open windows or open doors if there's any,
No, there's
heat or anything like that?
air conditioning. They're all sitting down there. We have, the windows are usually always closed, I think, actually. I don't think they're ever opened. And they're insulated. So I just had a new roof put on it not too long ago, and the heating system's all brand new. So all that's been, some people call them dogs, other people call them family. So you treat them that way.
So both the kennel and the house, the windows should be closed, and
Yeah, they both
there's no
have
reason
have air conditioning stuff. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
David Beach, questions?
I have no questions.
Yeah. My question is, ma'am, what happens if a dog gets sick, or what happens if your staff member gets sick? Are you on call, or is somebody on call to come help, or?
I live 5 minutes from the Chatham Dog Club, so I'm there all the time. If my staff member is sick, I have a staff of 6, so there's always somebody to cover somebody else's shift. And the staff member that will be there, I mean, she's going to, of course, have days off that other staff members are going to be able to cover.
I
for
meant
her.
like if she gets sick at night, you know, and something
she
happens
gets-
to her,
yeah.
will she be able to call somebody, or will somebody?
She can call me.
Yeah, okay. And what about if a dog gets sick? What happens, how does that work?
Well, generally, if the dog is sick, we're going to notice it during the day. So if the dog gets sick overnight, what type of sick are you? I don't know what you're expecting, vomiting or seizures
Well,
or whatever.
Somebody would be able to cover and then take the dog to the vet if need be?
Yes.
Or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And,
Yes.
very good, very good. Okay, deliberations. Ed, we'll start with you.
Well, I was out at the site, and the owner seems to have total control out there. I was sitting in the parking lot, sort of reading material, and next thing I know, someone was out knocking on my door, wondering, you know, what I was doing. So, and she did give me a tour inside, and I feel like it's a pretty well-run establishment, and if the windows are going to be closed and they're insulated buildings, and there's going to be someone who can monitor the dogs, I think I'm going to vote in the affirmative.
So you think it meets all the criteria?
I think it does.
Okay. Dave Veach?
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, I stepped back a little bit from this. First of all, I guess I want to say that I didn't see in any of the materials that were furnished to us, I didn't see any substantiated violations of the town noise bylaw. There were police reports of things, but in one of them that was a noise complaint, the officer sat for a while, didn't hear anything. And the letter from the chief indicated that there were no complaints relative to the Saturday night parking or whatever. So, you know, and so I'm looking at, and I look at the map, and I see, well, you know, we have 2 industrial zones in Chatham, and this is one of them. This is the primary one, probably. And for whatever reason, it fronts on a state highway, but perhaps somewhat unfortunately in terms of zoning, the other side of the highway is R60. But, you know, 2/3 of the town meeting created that situation and felt that, at least I would assume felt that the importance of an industrial zone to the town, I don't think anybody's gonna argue with that. We need those kinds of places and spaces. And we have a noise bylaw in effect that there haven't been any, violations found in any of the reports that we've seen. You know, I'm unfortunately, I don't know. What I've heard and I've heard with the neighbor earlier, and then in the previous meeting when I watched the tape, she indicated a problem with dogs at 105 barking, or her dog barking, or neighborhood dogs barking, and nothing substantiating that this is a problem that the dog club is creating or participating in. So I don't feel, and the other thing that's interesting looking at the zoning bylaw is that a kennel is one of the few non-residential, at least for humans, uses that our bylaw specifically allows in the residential zones, not just the industrial zone. So, to me, that says that the bylaw kind of holds kennels in a special place. in many respects. I mean, you know, it needs a special permit, so it needs our determination that it's not gonna be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or whatever, of substantial detriment. I just don't feel, I think this is kind of one of those situations where, for whatever reason, I mean, just like with neighborhood views and vistas, there may be some things that where a particular neighbor has had a problem or has problems. But to me, that doesn't rise to the level of saying that we shouldn't allow this use in the industrial zone, especially when it's been demonstrated or by a number of letters that the owner is competent, capable, knows what she's doing, and is running a good business. There's a need for it. I'm totally in favor of it.
Okay, Dave Nixon.
Well, I'm most impressed that Mr. Stello, the landlord, who's been here all his life, and owns a bunch of other properties, as he mentioned to us, including residences, that he's 100% behind this. And if anybody would have a problem financially affecting his ability to rent other things and whatnot, he would have torpedoed this long ago. So I really think that is the driving force behind me. And if we look at the criteria, adequacy of the site, absolutely, you know, I mean, consider what it is, the size of this, suitability of the site for the proposed use, I mean, commercial, industrial, impact on traffic zone safety, none of that. Impact on neighborhood visual character, no, it is what it is, the neighborhood is industrial. And so whether you had this or not, sewage disposal, you know, utilities, noise and litter is the only one that we've heard something about. But I'm convinced that it's under control, and it's never going to be perfect, but dogs are, right? So neither are we. So I can't see that we have a reason to turn this down. And from what I understand, there's a great need in this town for this.
Thank you very much. Ginny, deliberations?
Yeah, I focused on the specific criteria also. In particular, two, suitability of site for the proposed use. I watched the planning board hearing, which was months ago, and they talked a lot about that, and they talked about traffic and accessible, handicap accessible parking, and a lot of those kind of logistics. And they were comfortable, and we've talked about that today here too, the suitability of the site. Criteria 5, adequacy and method of sewage disposal for the dogs. They talked about that at the planning board hearing, and they were satisfied there. Noise and litter, we've talked about that today, and actually last time. And then in particular, criteria 8, the compatibility of the proposed use with the surrounding land uses. The industrial zone. It is unfortunate that the other side of the street, as Mr. Veach points out, is R60 and residential, but the side that has the proposed business and operating business for over 10 years is in an industrial zone. And there is a need for this, and I actually applaud the expanded business side of it. So I would be in support of it.
Yeah, thank you. Steve?
Well, I think there have been measures taken to try to minimize the amount of noise coming from this place, and apparently there isn't a lot of noise because, you know, the tenants aren't complaining who live on Mr. Stello's property, and Mr. Stello's not complaining. You know, and some of the noise that might be going on might be generated by these gunshots, so that, but I don't think that unless the dogs are going out and having target practice at night, the dog kennel is not creating the noise. It's coming from Commerce Park, and one of the police reports even said it could be coming from Depot Street in Harwich. So I think that the owner or the landlord has done, you know, what they can to minimize or eliminate any kind of noise coming from this establishment, and I wouldn't have a problem in approving it.
Okay, thank you. Lee?
Well, I agree with all my colleagues. I don't need to keep reiterating everything, except to say that I am always in support of businesses in Chatham, and obviously there's a need for this. And it sounds like the kennel is very well run, and I think we need to maybe take a leap of faith and hope that this works.
Thank you. And Paul?
We continued this from the prior hearing because we wanted to get the input from the police department and the complaints that had been filed. And when we look at those reports, I think there's only one that came in that actually related to a complaint about dogs barking at the kennel. And that one was checked out by an officer, and he found no substantiation for it. So I think we've gone the route that we should go in terms of determining the appropriateness of the kennel being located where it is and investigating the complaint that's been filed. I look at the general category, aside from the specifics that we've already talked about. And in this area, special permits may be granted when it is found that the use involved will not be detrimental to the established or future character of the neighborhood and the town, and where it has been found that the use involved to be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. I think all of the support for the kennel and this activity, and in considering whether the kennel is going to be detrimental to the future character or established character of the neighborhood and town, it clearly is not. So I think that the permit should be granted.
Thank you. And would you like to move?
I'll move to grant the requested relief.
Dave Veach seconds and votes in favor.
I vote, oh, I'm sorry, I had to go next.
I vote in favor.
I vote yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Paul?
I vote yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Congratulations and
much.
good luck.
Have a nice night.
All right, whenever Sarah's ready, we have 171 Morris Island Road, which just needs a little bit more time to pack it up for the summer. And we'll wait for the builder to come up.
Application number 24-066, David D. Drollinger and Patricia Q. Drollinger, care of Donald Dunham, 42 Weirno Avenue, number 1164, Osterville, Mass. 02655. Owners of property located at 171 Morris Island Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16I, Block 41, Lot H71. The applicant seeks to modify special permit number 23-083, granted on October 12, 2023, to modify condition number 2A, which prohibited exterior construction between June 15th and September 15th. The applicant is requesting to allow exterior construction to continue through July 1st, 2024. The lot contains 6,440 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 14, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Donnie Dunham, DeMartin Dunham Builders, and I have the property owner.
Dave Drollinger.
So I think a few of you may have gone out to the site. It's currently under construction. We're up on the second floor at this point. We're trying to finish the roof system to close it in for the summer, put the windows in, get the house weather tight. We ran into some structural issues initially upon demo, which caused the delay to get to this point. One caveat to our application request is the intent was actually June 28th is enough time. That would put us to the Friday before the date that was requested, which is ample time to get to that point.
Okay, very good. And I could wait till questions, or I could just say it now, which I think I'm going to say it now. Didn't you have a little trouble, because no fault of your own, you got a later start date? You want to talk about that a little bit?
I appreciate that, Randy. Yep. So there was this slight hiccup with historic. The house fell within a date within like 6 months of its age. So at the last second, we had to file with historic. So we were given a partial permit to get started, which was a demo permit, which allowed us to get started, but then we had to stop until we saw CHC.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Is that your presentation?
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
pretty
very good.
simple.
Yeah, that's okay. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this extension or this condition change? Please make it known. Seeing nobody, I will read the two correspondences. First one is from Chris Jacko, and that was received on June 4th, 2024. Sarah, I support the 2-week construction extension to close in home. Lots of delays due to weather in this winter, spring. And they live on 27 Clamshell Drive, Chris and Sue Jacko. And then we have another note from Brendan and Heidi Driscoll, and they live 157 Morris Island Road. And they write on May 29th, 2024, good morning. We received notice that our neighbors, David and Patricia Drollinger, located at 171 Morris Island Road, Chatham, are seeking to modify special permit. As neighbors located at 157, we would like to support the request to allow exterior construction to continue through July 1st, 2024. Now, is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this condition change? If so, please make it known. Seeing no one. Questions from the board? I'll just say, are there any? Does anybody have any questions? Did you have a question? No? Yep, go
I
ahead.
just have a question. 22 and 20, the two rental units right behind you there. Have you reached out to them, or do you know, is that going to be rented during this time period?
It's a great question, Ed. We did check the rentals, and we couldn't find that they even have it listed. They usually use Pine Acres, right, Dave? But we did check the Blanchard's property. Bida Luke's property to the left, and they do not have it rented during that time. They're even closer than 20 to 22.
Okay, thank you.
I know that didn't specifically
Yep,
verify, but
just want,
It's a
you know,
good
it's not
question.
so much the owners, but the renters that are going to be affected in there, so I'd
agreed.
like to keep them happy.
Me too.
Yep. Anybody else have a question? Please feel free. No? Okay, so Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
David seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon? Vote yes to close the hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Paul?
It seems to me this is a reasonable request, and they're certainly being thoughtful about how they approach it. I see no reason to not grant the request.
And Lee?
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate the June 28th, because if there are renters coming in anywhere, probably they would start that next Saturday, so. If I were voting, I would support this as
And-
well.
Yep. Steve?
I don't have any issues. I think, I don't see any problems with doing this.
Okay. Ginny?
Yeah, I was curious to know why we ended up with the 15th, so I went back and watched our previous tape, because normally it's June 30.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
I know deliberations. It's funny that you say that, because we have a few projects that are the 15th, but I noticed in today's hearing that it's been the 30th more as of late, so.
Well, what I found when I listened to
Oh,
it
sorry,
was
yep.
that we had sort of settled on the 15th. There was sort of a compromise in our hearing, because a neighbor had asked for Memorial Day to Columbus Day. That was, and we kind of thought that was too long. And so we kind of, but also it is a busy street. And so I think the comment from some of the neighbors is that the 15th would be better. So, but I appreciate the glitch that you had with historic. I too had brought a little mini calendar with me. I was thinking I was going to suggest the 28th, because if there are any renters there, they would start that Saturday.
For July 4th.
So I think that what you're proposing sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm totally, I think it's fine. Personally, I would say, well, you know, these things being the way they are, since we've advertised the first or whatever, I'm happy to let them go to the first. I mean, you know, if somebody comes in on Saturday, I mean, if they're that close and they get a rainy day or something, then they can get those 2 more days. and some tenants come in on Saturday, well, 2 days, that, you know, I mean, we don't, keep in mind that our control over these things is limited, and I think we do a good job with it, but all over town, you've got construction going on and renters moving in next to it with no idea what's going on. So I do appreciate that this board is cognizant of that, because I think that's a really good thing.
Yep.
I support it.
Very good. Ed?
I would support it for the 28th. Thank you.
Mr. Nixon, what say you?
Well, unfortunately for you, I drive by, if not 4 times a day, then it's 6 or 8, because I live on Stage Island, you know. So I see a lot of it, and that machine you have out front, you know, is it orange or yellow or whatever it is, you know? It's waiting to grab me as I go by. It wants to snap me up. Well, since I walk down there most every weekend, when there's no one down there, I want to say that the various contractors that we deal with, the builders, you have to be the neatest one. I mean, you coil up that, yeah, he does, he coils everything up and he hangs it up just right, he cleans everything up. I don't know, you were brought up in a household where there was no mess, I can tell that, yeah. So anyway.
Appreciate that, Dave.
I'm not wild about the idea because we don't know who's rented what, and you don't either. But no one stepped forward, and I asked a few.
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, no, no, it's okay. Well, when is it not okay? But I think that you solve that problem by the 28th.
Okay.
I could support that.
Yeah. And I also think if we thought for a moment you were only trying to make your deadline, then things would be different. But I know a number of us have driven by there. I went by yesterday, and they invited me to up on the roof, which was, I like the attention, so I didn't mind. And they, I guess your foreman was working, or somebody who said he doesn't even usually work, but they're trying that hard. So, and anyway, I'm also not a big fan of restricting building in the first place, because if you don't have to come for a special permit, you don't have any particular restrictions. So anyway, so I'm in support of it. Paul?
All right, I'll move to approve the application with a modification that is June 28th as opposed to July 1st, 2024 as the substituted condition.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
Jenny?
I vote yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And that appears to conclude our hearing. Let's see.
That's it.
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
It votes yes.
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 Steve?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
And what time is it, Sarah?
5:55 PM.
Good job. All right, good night, Chatham.